Troubles with trash. Growing concern tonight about the disposal of a popular product, vapes.
Anthony Ponce takes a closer look at why recycling them isn't a simple matter.
Loyola University Chicago biology professor Tim Holine's research is all about what people leave behind.
In regards to trash, what we're trying to measure is what are the sources, what's the fate, and how does trash interact with living things when it's in our freshwater ecosystems.
He and his team of students and researchers have been looking at the health of freshwater environments in our area for several years, categorizing the types of items they find. But roughly 8 years ago, they had to make a change to how they collect data.
Maybe around 2014, 2015, we had to add a new category to our list, which was vaping-related trash. It was something we hadn't been seeing before then in the environment, but then we would occasionally encounter on our beaches or in our waterways. And so what we would see is the kind of disposable vaping products. Some of these are single-use items, or other times we'd see the packaging that are for the refills that go into the vaping products.
Holine says about 40% of the trash they find on local beaches is made up of smoking-related products, including things like vaping materials and cigarette butts.
If a vape pen were littered and then ultimately crushed and the battery leached out, that could present some potential water quality issues that could impact soil quality.
James Jennings with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency says that disposing of vaping products can be a problem because of the way they're made.
Any electronic device, because of the number of components, presents disposal or recycling issues because the more parts that you have, the more difficult it is to deconstruct those and then ultimately make sure that each of the individual components ends up at its appropriate end-of-life home.
One of the more challenging components to deal with are the batteries, which can impact soil and water quality if they're not disposed of properly.
These chemicals that come out of circuitry, they can be kind of sticky, especially in the sediments. If they're consumed or assimilated by some living thing, they can cause toxicity.
Battery recovery has become a pretty significant national issue for regulators like us, but then also for waste industry because of the fire concerns that batteries present.
The next concern is the plastic that goes into these types of devices.
What happens to plastic in the environment? It loses its rigidity and it can just break into small pieces. And eventually it'll break into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces. We call those microplastics. Microplastics are really easily moved downstream, eventually to the oceans. And these kinds of plastics can last, a very long time in the environment when they have these additives that are designed for heat resistance.
And the contents of these products can also pose a risk to the environment if not handled properly.
So nicotine and some of the other chemicals that are in there are biologically reactive. It might be dangerous for the kinds of microorganisms and other very small creatures that can encounter these kinds of chemicals because they can be toxic to them.
So what's the best way to dispose of these products in an environmentally friendly way? Alex Clark from the Consumer Advocates for Smoke-Free Alternatives Association says a good place to start may be going back to where the purchase was first made.
Anybody who is buying these products from a specialty retailer, a vape shop, or even a tobacconist that sells vapor products, a lot of times those shops will accept devices for recycling.
For the material inside the vape, some medication and hazardous waste programs will accept them.
As a general matter, before taking any of your products to any site, you'd want to call ahead just to confirm that they actually are equipped to handle them.
There are resources available, the EPA's website, there are resources on your city's website, or even the state might have things available.
Clark says another option is to move away from single-use vapor products.
I always recommend look into the open system products. They are more durable. They're easier to break down. The younger generations are much more, environmentally conscious. And so that's going to change buying habits.
It's a unique situation in that it creates material complexities, but also it comes at a time when there is a lot of focus on each of those individual materials. There's a growing national emphasis on trying to identify alternative end-of-life options.
And the Illinois EPA tells us that there's currently no centralized vape drop-off program yet, but that there's hopes that the recycling of these devices could become more organized in the future through partnerships with the manufacturers. So it's kind of a wait-and-see thing on that front.
All right, Anthony, thanks.